Well, it's always a pleasure to welcome my next guest. We seem to solve all the problems of the world whenever I get together with Chris Fisher. And if that is a name that you recognize, kudos to you, because he is indeed the co-author of one of the great books that came out about birding in Alberta. And it's always my pleasure to welcome Chris to the program. And Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year to you too, Michael.
So one of the things that kind of tweaked me to reach out and do an interview with you, Chris, is snowy owls. And full disclosure, I have yet to get a photograph of one of these birds. So I'm hoping to tap into your expertise a little bit, but this has become a bit of a thing down in the Calgary area.
Well, not only the Calgary area, the Edmonton area as well. And I'm sure many of your audience with Let's Go Outdoors will have had experience with snowy owls. It's one of the most iconic birds that Alberta has, particularly in the winter, when we tend to be a little starved of birds and wildlife. And it's certainly one that we can see quite easily, well, most easily driving around the back roads of Alberta. And that's certainly an experience that many Albertans take advantage of in these cold winter months, driving around the gravel roads, generally to the east of Highway 2. If you want to go see them, you generally go to farmland. Now, these are Arctic nesting owls that come down around about the end of November, and they stick around till April or so. Some might stay a little bit longer. So as we enter the new year, this is prime snowy owl season. Now, the trick is not only to go to farmlands, but very, very flat farmlands. And my geologist friends like to remind me that the flatter the area is means that they used to be the bottom of glacial lake beds. So east of Calgary, for instance, used to have a post-glacial lake when all the meltwater settled, and it created a very flat surface. Same to the northwest of Edmonton in the Morinville area. That area used to be post-glacial lake. Edmonton, really flat area, so they like it nice and flat where they can stand out and be seen.
In terms of, I guess, the population of snowy owls, have they, like other bird species, faced some hard times as of late due to whether we want to call it climate change or industrialization, that type of thing?
I think for the most part, they're a relatively steady population. We say that cautiously because by their very nature, because they do breed up in the Arctic tundra above tree line, their primary prey is lemmings. So like most raptor species and many owl species, they lay many more eggs than they could ever hatch and rear, except when the lemming population is very, very high. So in those years, you can have, 6 or even 8 young snowy owls fledging. And in those years, we tend to see a lot of them coming down south. The young snowy owls tend to be darker overall, almost black with a little bit of white fleckling in them. And they come down and they're hunting not lemmings down in central and southern Alberta, but of course, mice, deer mice, and meadow voles, the occasional partridge, some ducks, these sort of things. So the population of snowy owls naturally cycles up and down over the years. And because they do tend to breed in areas with very little industrial activity, while there's still some impacts of climate change, it is a species that we're not overly concerned with, and it is listed as secure in the province presently.
Of course, Chris, this year, a little bit different in the sense that we've seen a lot more snow and the colder temperatures. What kind of, not only on the snowy owl, but on some of our other overwintering fine feathered friends, what kind of impact, if any, is the colder temperatures and the deeper snow having?
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good point, particularly in southern Alberta, where we don't tend to see as much snow, because there tends to be Chinooks that blow through, of course, in southern Alberta, and that keeps these agricultural fields, pretty clear of snow. Whereas you do tend to have a higher snowpack the further north you go. Now, Snowy owls are primarily a visual hunter. That's why we see them hunting during the day from up top of telephone poles or fence poles, or even on slight rises. As you drive around, you can see them perched up high, visually scanning for deer, mouse, or any sort of rodent or anything that pops above the snow pack. So when there is more snow, those rodents tend to stay below in what's called the subnivean layer. The snow can provide a great source of insulation, and right at the bottom, the intersection of the ground and the bottom of the snow, it kind of melts a little bit, and it creates a cozy environment where these things can scurry around and eat the waste grain that's found in these agricultural croplands. And snowy owls aren't particularly great at getting those mice, whereas some other owls, like great gray owls, which I know you've seen, are really experts at plunging through the snow. These ones are skipping things off the top. So when we do tend to see deep snow, it's a little rougher on snowy owls and other birds, in particular waterfowl. We've seen a huge rise in the number of waterfowl, from Canada geese to mallards, which are the two most abundant waterfowl that we see overwintering in central and southern Alberta, primarily because they can use the open of open water. And while they do a little bit of feeding in these open waters, they really need to fly off. And certainly here in Calgary, we see movements of hundreds, if not thousands, of these birds off to the surrounding farm fields where they pick up the waste grain. And obviously, if there have been Chinook conditions, this is great advantageous to them because they can easily get these grains that have been spilt. But when you do have a higher level of snowpack, ducks and geese simply don't have a great ability to dig through that snow in order to get some needed food at this time of year.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for some great insight into the snowy owl, and maybe it's just enough to get me back on track, because I've seen them, standing or sitting on telephone poles, but never in a position to get a good photo. So, and of course, the iconic shot is that bird swooping down, flying low over a farmer's field, as you said. And well, maybe this will be the winter it happens. As always, a great opportunity to talk with you, and look forward to reaching out to you again real soon and chatting more about the birds of Alberta.
Anytime, Michael. Nice speaking with you.